Okay, today we did more ratio table problems, and one of the new things we did was this comparing two schools problem. And tonight, if you're stuck, I thought I would work through the back side of this worksheet, which follows the same example. So the situation was there were two schools, East High School and West High School, and and there were different sporting events at the two schools. So for example, in problem one, um, this problem one is about a basketball game. And at the basketball game, there were 160 East fans and 240 West fans. So in all, at this particular basketball game, 400 fans showed up. And we worked through the problem, and we found out by changing that 400 to 100 with division, we can figure out that 60% of the fans were West fans and 40% of the fans were East fans. And then we did the same kind of thing down here with the different sporting events. So this was the gymnastics meet. And in the gymnastics meet, instead of giving the number of fans, it gave the ratio of East to West fans to be 13 to 7. So we started with the 13 and the 7 and found the total of 20. And then we multiplied that 20 by 5 to get 100, to get the percent. So we found out that there was 35% of the fans were West, and that 65% of the fans were East, because remember, percent is per 100. And so we simply changed that 20 to 100 by doing multiply by 5. And then we did a little bit of shading in on a percent bar. So if you look real closely, this percent bar is broken up into 10 sections. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. And since 65% of the fans were West fans, oh, I think we mixed it up. Nope, yeah, East fans, sorry. 65% of the fans were East fans. We went over to 65, which is between 60 and 70, and we just shaded in 65%. And then for the West fans, we went and did the same process halfway between 30 and 40 is 35%. So then we did a little more thinking. We read Part D and said there were 180 fans at the gymnastics meet. And up here, it only gave us the ratio. So if we start with that ratio here, we could either work within the table and get to 180 by multiplying that 20 by 9, or we could restart the problem and just put East fans to West fans to total. Sometimes just starting in a new table for some people makes it easier. And we need to figure out if the ratio of East fans to West fans was 13 to 7. What if there were 180 fans? And so we talked about just multiplying this by 9 and multiplying the 7 by 9 and the 13 by 9 And then we find out that there would be 63 west fans and 117 east fans for a total of 180 fans. That's kind of where we left off. So let's just practice with another problem. At the last swim meet, between east and west fans, there are 280 east fans, so that's right here, and 220 west fans, and that's right there. And we have to fill in the ratio table. And to answer the following. So I'm going to first say, well, if there's 280 east fans and 220 west fans, when I add that together, I know that there's 500 fans in all. So let's read the question. What percentage of the fans, oops, sorry about that. Let's try that again. What percentage of the fans, so percentage, remember, is per 100. What percentage were east fans? So we want to get to 100. So remember, we can just divide this by 5, or 10 might be easier, because then they all divide by 10 nice and quickly since they end in a 0. And so when I divide 220 by 10, for example, I get 22. And if I divide 50 by 500 by 10, I get 50. And the reason that's nice is then I can just double. And I would get 56. 28 times 2 is 56. 44. I should be able to add these two numbers and get 100, but I also should be able to double 50 and get 100 to check my work. So what this tells me is, of the east fans, which is the top row here, 56%, or of all the fans, 56% of them were from East High. And so that means 44% were west fans. So part 4, which of the sporting events? So remember, the first page had basketball, gymnastics, and this page is swimming. Did East Middle School have the highest percentage of fans? So for basketball, gymnastics, and swimming, East Middle School had 56% of the fans for swimming, because we just did that one. And if we look back a page, we can look at 2 pages together. East fans at the gymnastics meet had 65%. And at the basketball meet, East fans had 40%. So it looks like they had the highest percentage at gymnastics meets. So that must be a popular sport at their school. And then for West, when we look at the West fans, and look at the basketball, gymnastics, and swim meets, over here for basketball, there was 60% of the fans were West fans, and at the gymnastics meet, 35% of the fans were from West, and then at the swim meet, 44% were from West. So it looks like they had the highest percentage at basketball. So they must be a school that has a lot of basketball fans. So today, you know, the takeaway is what we did different today was this was the first day that when we had a problem that we had to figure out a total to create percents. And it was also, I think, the first time that we started with a ratio here and had to go from the ratio of 13 to 7 to get this 20 and then project up and figure out how many actual fans there were if there was 180 people in the crowd. We also did a little review of percent bars. It's sort of an elementary school review, but it's a very nice visual to kind of give you an idea of how much a certain percent is. That's it.